All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Tuesday, March 26th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton. I think Pat's alive.
I am Pat and I am alive, but listen, I was in Vegas, baby, Vegas this whole weekend. It was a bachelor party situation, not Tom Hanks variety, which I think did well at the box office, but not one of Tom Hanks's bigger hits. But I was drinking, I was gambling. We can't really get into it on this feed. I think we have to save the gritty details of my Vegas trip for the Kirk exclusive on the Kirk Minahan YouTube network. So we will get to that. And Clayton, I'll just tell you one thing about Vegas this weekend. I met a woman, and we're going to get into it on the other show. But it's some wild details. So, you got to listen. You got to watch the BO Boys Kirk exclusive on YouTube to catch all those. But there's a little tease. I went to Vegas and I met a woman, and me and you are going to get into that later. But before that, on this show, I think we got to plow, and we're not talking about the snow variety, which I know a lot about after this weekend in Vegas, but I think it's time you plow for this box office weekend of Friday, March 22nd.
Number one, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire made $45 million in its opening frame. Number two, Dune Part 2 made $17.6 million, down only 38%. It hemorrhaged theaters. It lost 410. It's at $233.3 million in its fourth weekend. Number three, Kung Fu Panda 4 made $16.5 million, down 45%. It lost 262 theaters. It's at $132.9 million in its third weekend. Number four, a newbie, Immaculate, $5.3 million in its first frame. Number five, Arthur the King made $4.2 million, down 44%. No theater change. It's at $14.5 million in its second weekend. And I'm just going to go to six real quick here. Another newbie, a horror movie from IFC Films, Late Night with the Devil, made $2.8 million in only 1,000 screens. It is, listen, that's something.
That is something. That is something, Clayton. Let's actually talk about that to start. Had you heard about this Late Night with the Devil going into this weekend? What was your awareness of this Late Night with the Devil?
I saw the first trailer for it and I saw the second trailer for it.
Okay,
And
great.
I followed this gentleman's career, and I'm not going to try to say his name, but he's a guy who's been in Marvel movies as like a secondary character. He was in the Suicide Squad. And
Can I try and say his name? May I try and say his name?
You can
I'm looking
try.
at it. And again, remember, I was in Vegas all weekend, so it's tough to say any name, but I will say Starlight with the Devil. His name is, I think, David Dastmalchian.
Okay.
He was in the Dracula on a Boat movie over the summer, right? Was he not on the last voyage of the Demeter? I'm pretty sure he was in that.
Pat, you know what? We'll never know. There's no way to tell.
No one will know. Yeah, there's no way.
Well, I'll tell you why I follow this gentleman's career, Pat, because I did a
Okay.
series of Wendy's commercials with this gentleman when he first started out. I was an extra, and he did some Wendy's commercials, and I was way, way in the background. And this gentleman had aspirations to be a serious actor, and guess what? He did it.
Wow. And did you have such aspirations at that point in time, or were you just in it for the for the loss? You're just trying to make a buck. So acting, winning acting awards, working in this line, to you it all would have been the same result.
And so, we all end up as dust.
Some of us end up as soot, which is good for your business. Mm-hmm. So David Dastmalchian, he's a star of this movie. I gotta say, I'm gonna throw this out here because this movie overperformed. I mean, this was, 2.8 million for an IFC Films midnight release. That is, we're not in summer of 2020 when IFC Films midnight ruled the roost. This is modern times, and IFC Films is not necessarily a juggernaut anymore.
Well, you know what this says to me, Pat? New variant dropping soon.
Oh, wow. IFC Films is the harbinger of pandemic. Yeah, that's possible. I hope that's not the case. Here's what I hope is the case, Clayton. Here's what I hope is back. Are younger people wistful for late night? Are they wistful for the days, that we were raised in, the late night warts, the late shift? Are they wistful for the days when it wasn't just the mayonnaise men, when these late night hosts actually mattered? Could that be a thing that went on this weekend with this late night with the devil?
It's such an older version of that
Uh-huh.
I don't think that played much into it, I'll be honest with you. If this would
Okay.
have been late or early 90s Carson, or early 90s Letterman, then
Right,
I would
right,
say, "Oh, there's a hunger here." But this seems so this seems so old-fashioned for young people to even have any concept of. I mean,
right,
I don't
right,
think they're watching the Dick Cavett show on YouTube. So I
right,
just think
right.
this is more of a I think this is more of a interesting found footage situation. It had a lot of buzz. I mean, this is impressive for this movie. Now we'll see if it holds or does anything after this, or the hardcores have been satiated. But yeah, I mean, this is impressive. I mean, we were calling Love Lies Bleeding to take this number 5 spot, which didn't happen, Arthur the King, and then it didn't even take the number 6 spot because this devil comes in and just steals its thunder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right because the depiction of a late night in this movie seems more of like a Joe Franklin show than it
Mhm.
does a Letterman. It's not like the devil is doing any jaywalking in this, any Iron J, any, stupid human tricks, anything like
Dancing
that.
Itos.
I don't think there's any possessed dancing Edos in Late Night with the Devil. I though haven't seen the film, so I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that happens.
I
Um,
myself have not
eh,
seen the film either.
it's gonna be on Shutter pretty soon. That is what I'm seeing. But hopefully it does get a couple of weeks of racking up some money at the box office. And I don't know. I mean, I love to see this turn into a franchise. Like you have the VHS franchise, which continues into different eras with the VHS sequels. So give us a Late Night with the Devil that gets us into the Letterman Leno, 90s wars. Let,
Mhm.
let's let's get that. Let's get this devil hiding in a closet, taking notes while the executives talk about replacing him with David Letterman. I would love personally to see that Late Night with the Devil sequel. All right, so that's Late Night with the Devil. Clayton, what's a movie that you want to get into before we get into Frozen Empire? Anything else in this top 10 list that strikes your fancy here?
I mean, I think we do have to mention Immaculate. That's a
Yes,
movie
yes.
that, Sydney Sweeney. Now, this is a movie that supposedly was a passion project for her. She's a producer on it. Uh, 5 mil. That was what was expected. I know we both went a little bit high. I went 7. What did you end up going with? Okay, now I can't hear you.
I so I said this would be 10 million. I thought it would be double what it did. Uh I think it just comes down to it's a neon release and they didn't promote the thing at all. Do you think that this same movie with the bigger distributor does any better, or is it just that this is what this movie was always destined to do?
Oh, I mean, I think if you have muscle behind this thing, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you put some muscle behind one of the emerging, stars here, yeah, you definitely get something here. And I've heard I mean, it's not terrible. And
Mm,
she's getting good notes for her acting in this. But I also think there's a level of this devil movie. sort of also came in and took some of that thunder, because if
Yeah,
this was the only horror movie for the Gorehounds coming out, maybe it does overperform. But you see that
right.
Devil made 2 point something million dollars, that money could have gone to Immaculate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I really think that probably does play into it. It doesn't help that the Gorehounds had another choice, but I really think it comes down to you just didn't see big promotion for Immaculate anywhere. This was all on the back of Sydney Sweeney letting her fans know that this existed.
Mhm.
And because this did less than a Night Swim, but something like Night Swim got so much promotion that they pushed it to $10 million plus just because people knew it was coming out. Even though
And
I think if they both got the same promotion, Immaculate would have done much better.
and Blumhouse has a cachet to it. It's like A24. Now, A24, they do have movies that underperform, obviously, but you're just gonna have more people going for the label when it comes to a Blumhouse or an A24 than they're gonna go for a Neon. Neon just doesn't
Right.
have that identity of they always have great shit.
Right, right. Especially with horror. I could be wrong, but I can't think of horror breakouts from Neon. They were the studio behind Parasite and
Mhm,
behind some other sort of art house dramatic hits, but they're not known for horror the way that Blumhouse obviously or even A24 are known for.
mhm.
Or
Yeah,
as we're seeing IFC Midnight. Um, I think this $5 million that she pushed it to with her own social media is a small win for her, and it seems like the budget for this was pretty low. Everything I'm seeing says that the budget for Immaculate was under $10 million.
yeah. I mean, it'll like everything, it'll eventually make money,
Right,
but we talk about box office here, so that's what's important. I it's one of those wait and see, what does it do next weekend? I mean, does this just
right,
drop straight off the map?
right. It's got the first Omen coming out in a few weeks,
April
so
5th, I believe.
yeah, so that'll end up sucking up all the possession oxygen in a few weeks. So it basically got you know this coming weekend, which I think is Easter weekend. I know you're a big time churchgoer. Is Easter coming up this weekend?
That's a great question. I actually am a lapsed Catholic, so I don't know. I know it's
Okay.
early this year, so it is either this coming weekend or next weekend.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
can't be
I mean,
WrestleMania weekend. There's no way they put Easter on WrestleMania weekend. That would be ridiculous. So it has to be this
uh,
weekend.
it would be a disaster for Easter if it has to
Mhm.
go up against The Rock and Cody Rhodes. Yeah.
Easter Bunny gets
Um,
body slammed.
yes, 100%. So, yeah, I mean, I thought this would do a little more, but there just wasn't the awareness of Immaculate to get it to a mainstream audience. Um, but you know what did get to a mainstream audience, Clayton? Do you want to talk about the number one film of the weekend, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire?
And Pat, can I say I nailed this? Or is it close enough to what I said that it would be the same exact amount? I mean, it's not the same exact amount, but it is roughly, you know, provided a bump in ticket price. This is the
Do,
same people who
mhm.
saw the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, it does show, that the Ghostbusters Afterlife came out in what, the fall of 2021, right? That was
Mhm.
October, November 21. So it does show that those people, for the most part, have survived the last 2 years because it's the
Mhm.
exact same people that came again. Although we went to see it opening weekend and we didn't go this weekend, so we must have been replaced by somebody.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Opening weekend, me and you were both there 2 years ago. So two people did replace us. Two younger people step up and replace us, and we didn't die, but we just didn't go.
Mhm. I mean, and also, I mean, this movie, higher budget,
Yeah.
Sony's usually pretty good with budgets. I do think that if they continue this franchise, which they probably will, depending on how well this holds
Mhm.
and what it can do down the stretch. Because I mean, I do think the collab is going to really eat into this because I also think this
Yeah.
is not a beloved movie. I don't think people enjoyed this movie. So the hardcores went the first weekend, as we can see.
Right, right.
I do think it's not going to make as much as Afterlife, definitely. But keep churning out these sequels until the audience dies or the Ghostbusters die, and keep the budgets low. Do not go higher. I would say cut the budget for the next one.
Well, in order to cut the budget for the next one, are you cutting out a star of the original movies?
No,
Are
you
you
kill
not
Finn
bringing Bill Murray
Wolfhard.
back?
No, you kill
Okay.
Finn Wolfhard. Uh,
Okay.
you give the little girl 5 minutes on screen.
Okay.
And then
Wow.
you
So
just have these old farts running around shooting lasers, which is what the fans want. Which, not
wow.
judging, just
Not
facts.
touching.
Not
Yeah.
judging, just
So
facts.
you're saying a third Ghostbusters movie in this cycle should be old farts and not new heart throbs. You think they should go Aykroyd, Murray, more screen time, kill off Finn Wolfhard, and don't bring Finn Wolfhard back as a ghost. Like kill him off, cut his head off. He's not a ghost.
Well, I guess maybe that's against this sort of, they wouldn't kill him. He went to college and he's not answering his phone. Right? I
Oh,
mean, you do
okay.
that sort of
Okay.
stuff. It's like they grew out of it and these old farts didn't. And that's the
Right.
story. I mean, I think
Right.
that's the thing is you cut these young people loose, and obviously their salaries are not going to be what the oldster salaries are. But
Right.
if it's a third
Aykroyd's the one
movie,
eating up all the budget.
if there's a third movie, then these actors are going to expect a bump. And you
Right.
just cut them loose. You just don't give it to them. McKenna
Right.
Grace, cut her loose,
Cut her
or
loose.
like I
Wow.
said, very, very short screen time. And, Paul Rudd, I think, is the one you want to bring back. Maybe give him some
Yeah.
points. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
Carrie
keep this
Coon.
budget
Do you
low.
bring Carrie Coon back?
Well, if her kids aren't there, then we don't need Carrie Coon, so cut her loose too.
Wow. So you're doing this movie opened higher than the last one, but you're talking full house cleaning of the Ghostbusters cast.
Because
After this
that
opening
is
weekend.
what they want. That the fans want that. Give them that and keep the budget low. If you're Sony, that's what's smart. Because you're gonna get a third movie probably of this trilogy. Past that, audience dead, Murray may be dead, Aykroyd may be dead. Ernie Hudson probably will outlive everybody there.
Yeah,
but
he's looking great. Yeah.
he's looking great. So, but that would be what I would say here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the film. I've read some spoilers of things they're setting up for the future, and this is not a spoiler of anything that happens in the movie, but there apparently is a setup for a future movie that would involve the tiny Stay Puft Marshmallow Man that we saw in Afterlife. That apparently they're teased in a heavy way. So do you think you do a third movie with just the tiny Stay Puft Marshmallow Men, and that would really cut the budget?
Well, the buzz is that they're trying to make them into minions. This is like the live action. I guess they're not. I mean, they're animated, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Minion situation. Yeah, I mean they're free, other than the
Right.
VFX artists that you chain to a desk and make these things.
Right.
I do think, yeah, cut everybody loose. Have Paul Rudd be the star with the oldsters showing up, and
Right.
put these marshmallow men in instead of the kids.
Wow. Well, I mean, here's a rumor that I've heard that that I think this would be a blowing up of the budget. Do you think there's any chance another Ghostbusters movie, the gimmick is this current crop of Ghostbusters meets the Ghostbusters from Answer the Call, from 2016 Answer the Call? Is that at all a possibility here? I mean, then you're going nuts with the budget because you're bringing back Wig, McCarthy, post Barbie McKinnon. Leslie Jones has got to delay shooting Supermarket Sweep for a week, so you're throwing the budget out of whack if you do that. But it's a possibility.
Well, I think you're trolling here because
Okay, okay,
there was on Deadline, one of the top articles was Ernie Hudson talking about the 2016 Ghostbusters Answer the Call, and they tried to trap him into saying something. They always try to trap these people into saying something bad about this movie to start this
right,
brouhaha over again.
right.
And I think they're steering clear of it because so many people have said it just creates this sort of conversation that everybody's sick of. I don't see Kristen Wiig doing it. I don't see McCarthy doing it. I don't see anybody doing it because they got a lot of crap unfairly for it. I mean,
Right,
the
right.
facts are that they were trying to reboot Ghostbusters for years and years and years.
Years and
And they
years
were
and
trying
years.
to do it with every single crop of comedians that came out during those years. So
Right,
they were going to do
right,
it with the frat pack, the Vince
right,
Vaughns and the Ben Stillers and the Owen Wilsons. They were going to try to do that.
right.
They were going to try to do it with the Apatow crew.
Yes.
Your Seth Rogens and your Jonah Hills and
Yeah, yeah.
probably
Dave
yes,
Franco, probably. Yeah, yeah.
not Dave Franco. Not Dave Franco. He wasn't part of that. I do
I think
think
he could have
that
played a janitor that said, Ghost is that way, dude. He might have
yeah.
gotten a spot there. Yeah.
So
Craig
I do
Robinson.
think
Craig Robinson would have been in that
I
version.
was just gonna that was the name I
Yeah,
was
Craig
trying to
Robinson.
bring
Yeah.
back from the depths of my memory.
Yeah.
This just so happened in 2016 to be the people, right?
Yes.
McCarthy was big at the time.
Yep.
You had
Huge.
you had SNL was popping and Leslie Jones was popping, and so
Yep.
was Kate McKinnon. And of
She
course,
was
Kristen
popping.
Wiig
Yep.
had a big hit with Bridesmaid, and this was going to be her follow up, her comedy big follow up to it.
Yeah.
All of the ingredients were there. And guess what? It opened to 46 and it
Right.
did
Did what
good
this did.
business. It just wasn't a gigantic Melissa McCarthy or Bridesmaid size hit. So
Right.
that was the problem. And
Well,
I
and the
think,
budget on that was out of control. The budget was gigantic. That
yeah,
was the budget of it needed to do Marvel numbers to success.
yeah. So the thing with that is that it's looked at as this abject failure, and it's not. It was
Right.
a movie that did okay when it should have done or they expected it to do spectacular. So to answer your question, there's no way any of them go anywhere near anything resembling a jumpsuit or a proton pack ever again.
Wow. Okay. I mean that would be trying to supercharge this franchise.
I don't think that
But
supercharges it. Because I just don't think the people who go see these movies want to see these old farts. They
yeah,
want to
they
see the
want to
old
see the
farts
old
in the
parts.
suits because we've talked about this at BOHQ. Ghostbusters isn't a thing other than these characters.
Yeah.
The thing that makes Ghostbusters what it is the personalities. It was wrapped around comedic personalities, these
Right. Right.
specific comedic personalities, right? And
Right.
that's what people have proven that they want.
Yeah, it's
They want these comedic personalities in these jumpsuits with the Proton Pack. They want Bill Murray phoning it in. That's what they
yes.
want. And
Yes.
anything else, they don't want a different character that like they don't want a Kate McKinnon different Ghostbusters character. They don't want a Leslie Jones different character. They don't really
Right.
want McKenna Grace or Finn Wolfhard. I think the only reason these
No.
people went to Afterlife is because they were expecting, okay, we're going to get the oldsters to come in and save this at some point.
Right.
That's why they went
Right.
because it was being teased that these guys were going to be there. And that's why they went.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's the Star Wars thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
the studios thinking that Star Wars as a brand is what's meaningful. And in the end, it's just those three actors from the 70s in those three parts. And that's all
Yes.
people care about. And the helmet and the Darth Vader helmet, obviously.
Mhm.
You know, you if you have him walking around in that helmet, you could put me or you in there, and it would be acceptable.
How do
But
you know I haven't been in it?
you may have. I mean, listen, you went straight from the Wendy's commercial with David and Dalsamarian straight to being Darth Vader.
Mhm.
I don't know your whole life. We met later in life, so you're right. You may have been Darth Vader. Um, I gotta say, this movie did a little better than I thought. I said low 40s, and I did think there was a chance this was going to bottom out. So that's a big thing here. Is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire absolutely was a movie that at different points seemed like, man, this could open in the 30s and totally bottom out, and that did not happen. So Sony's got to breathe a sigh of relief, I guess, that this potential disaster ended up doing exactly what all the other movies have done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are lucky. I I uh, it's I'm having a hard time talking about this film,
Okay.
honestly,
Okay.
because
Okay.
it's so uninspiring, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
the future of theaters and cinema. This feels like a last gasp dying of the last era, the Marvelization of everything, where in the Star Wars, like you were saying, the sort of let's put new people in, but no one's gonna care, and then just bring back
Right.
Luke and blah blah blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
That
Yeah.
feels very old what used to be. I'm
Okay.
looking at the top of the charts and you're seeing Dune 2, and that's what's exciting. That
Yes.
this movie having a great hold still, and that new generation of stars where they're probably gonna be able to do different sorts of movies that aren't franchise movies. They're gonna be able to be lawyers, and they're gonna be able to be different sort of characters. This Ghostbusters sequel just feels old already, but
Yeah,
I'll tell
yeah,
you
yeah.
what, it's a Band-Aid for theaters. It's not saving
Yep.
theaters, but it's a Band-Aid for theaters, which you need Band-Aids once in a while. Band-Aids are good. I'm not gonna say that
Yes.
everything has to be a sign of great vitality and health. This is a Band-Aid,
Yes.
and
Sometimes
and
you
I
just want to stop up a gaping wound. And that's
yeah,
what Frozen
and
Empire did.
and it speaks to the power of the theater-going experience that this sort of heartless mercenary project made $45 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk about this as a heartless mercenary project, and it is. But I'm going to say congrats to someone who I think for this person, this is
Don't
their
congratulate this
passion.
person.
I am going to
Don't congratulate
congratulate
this
Dan
person.
Aykroyd. I'm going to
Oh,
say
oh, okay.
congratulations to Dan Aykroyd. Who did you not want me to congratulate?
I thought you were gonna, I thought you were
Oh,
going yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
also want to congratulate, and you'll join in with me on this, is congratulate Patton Oswalt for being in the number one
No,
movie
not Patton
in
Oswalt.
America.
That's not who I was gonna say. I was gonna say the director of the last movie and the producer and the writer of this movie.
Oh, Jason
What's his face?
Reitman.
Jason Reitman.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, I want to get back to congratulating Dan Aykroyd because
Okay.
I do think for him, this is not a mercenary act. This is
No.
his, aside from selling vodka, I think selling vodka is number one for Aykroyd. And I think number two is continuing the Ghostbusters franchise. And I'm sure right now he's typing away on a spin-off for these mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. He's genuinely excited about it,
Yeah.
and so good for Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, I mean, that good for Dan Aykroyd, I would say.
Good for Dan Aykroyd. Um, but so you would say good for Dan Aykroyd, you would say good for Patton Oswalt,
I would never say
good
that.
for
I read a
okay,
review
okay,
that immediately, and I'm not a critic,
huh?
that was reiterating how likable Patton Oswalt is. And I've never responded. I don't respond to things online. I don't send
Yeah,
letters. I don't email. I wanted to understand this person's mentality. In what world is Patton Oswalt likable? A
right.
likable presence.
Right,
like
right,
that is my question here is that how is he likable? You could say he's funny if that's your opinion. You could say he's interesting to look at. You could say that.
right,
Likable
right.
is probably on the low end of what I would say Patton Oswalt is.
But to be fair, we have not seen this film. So perhaps you would go see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and you would walk away and you'd say, Patton Oswalt was very likable, and I get it now.
There is a
Wow.
0.0 chance of that happening.
Wow. 0.0. That's very low. That's
Mhm.
very, very low.
It's as low as you
Paul
can
Rudd,
go.
it's as low as you can go. Yes. Paul Rudd, we talked about it last week in preview, how coming off of Quantumania, a movie that basically set off a chain reaction that destroyed superhero movies. Paul Rudd was unscathed coming out of Quantumania, and now he's back, number one movie in America. I think
Great.
no matter what people think of this movie, I'm sure they love him in it. To me, he was the highlight of the trailers. He delivered that line of "Bustin' makes me feel good." He said it in a certain Paul Rudd way that I was like, you know what, that's great. Um, he's just one of those stars that I think is just always going to be around because people are always going to like him, and he's always
That
going to be in enough successful stuff to keep going. So you could do, hopefully he uses cachet to get another David Wayne film off the ground soon. That's what I'm hoping
yeah, yeah,
comes out of
yeah.
this.
Me too, me too. Yeah, I mean, that's a likable guy. That's a likable guy. Yeah. I mean,
More likable than
Quantumania.
Patton Oswalt, you think?
Oh god, there we go. This is gonna become a thing. Quantumania is the Thanos of MCU movies. It
Right,
snapped its finger and killed everything.
right.
So I do think, yeah, this is, and we talked about this earlier. I mean, this is such a great rebound for him. All is forgiven, I believe,
Yep.
and I'm looking forward to seeing him in different franchises and maybe smaller movies going forward. But yeah, he seems to be a guy who's always going to have a career.
Yeah, yeah, great for Paul Rudd. Yeah, so we'll follow this in the weeks to come. I mean, we both think next week Godzilla X Kong the collab is going to be direct competition for Ghostbusters. So it may be a bloodbath for Ghostbusters next weekend, but it opened. It opened.
Mm, that's big. That's big.
That's big. Clayton, I want to throw something out at you before we go, which is a what if. I want to throw a what if at you. And it's about a movie that we both saw this weekend. So the Doug Liman directed, Jake
Oh,
Gyllenhaal, Conor McGregor star Roadhouse remake dropped on. We're not the Streamo Boys, huh? But
huh?
I bring this up because it has a box office backstory. Dropped on Amazon Prime over the weekend. Remake of the Swayze classic. And there was a big controversy a couple of months ago because the director, Doug Liman, furious that Amazon wasn't putting this in the theaters. He thought he directed it to be in the theaters. They got Jeff Bezos on a boat, ambushed him with the film, tried to convince him, put this in the theaters. It didn't happen. It dropped on streaming. And there was the big to do, and we had this as well of put it in the theater. Why not put it in the theater? We've both seen this film now. We both watched it. Do you think I won't say do you think this should have been in the theaters because in the end we think everything should go in the movie theaters. But had that happened and it been released theatrically, what do you think Roadhouse 2024 does at the box office? Does this have any chance of being a beekeeper? Let's say, is it that level of action movie? What do you think Roadhouse 2024 could have done theatrically?
No, I mean, this thing cries macho. I think this thing cries
Wow.
macho. It,
Wow.
uh, Doug Liman saying he thinks it's the best thing he's ever done
Yeah.
is a lie and pure
Yes, it can't be.
fabrication. He
Yeah.
was
Well,
trying to
he's
get it in
money and he doesn't
theaters.
even know it. He's money and he doesn't even know it.
He was trying to get into theaters because he wanted it in theaters, as he should, and
Right.
he used a lot of he said a lot of things that he really
Yeah.
shouldn't have
Yeah.
because
That he
it
can't take
does
back.
you can't take back these things. Tom Cruise saying that The Flash is one of the best movies he's ever seen.
Yep.
That hurts his credibility. That hurts his
Yeah.
credibility.
Yeah.
And Doug Liman's credibility has been hurt because this is a gentleman who's made great movies. I mean, Live, Die, Repeat,
Yes.
one of my
Yes.
all-time
Yes.
favorite movies, a great, fun action movie that looked amazing.
Looked
This movie
amazing.
looked terrible. It was boring. The
Yeah, Roadhouse
performances
is boring.
were across the board terrible. I think this movie would have ate shit at the theater, and
Yeah.
it should have. It should have ate shit. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see a world where this thing is a hit in theaters because Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal is not a butts in the seats movie star, and I would argue that he's a deterrent.
Yeah, I agree at this point. I think he plays a great creep. He plays a great boring creep, but boring creep usually is not a movie star box office persona.
No.
And he plays a boring creep as the lead in Roadhouse, which is
Mhm.
I haven't seen Roadhouse in a few years. I don't think that's the way Swayze played it in the original,
No,
as
he's a
boring creep.
fighter. He's a philosopher, poet, tough guy.
Right.
It's one of
Right.
the best action movie performances ever.
Right.
Best
That's how he played it.
soft, sensitive, tough guy performances ever by a true one of a kind star. And
Yeah.
then you got Jake Gyllenhaal, who can't
Yeah.
find a place to call home. Is he an art house draw? No. Is he a butts in the seat movie star? No. Is he an action star? No. What is
No.
this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. He's Maggie's brother right now. And
The great
she moved on to
director
being a
Maggie
director.
Gyllenhaal.
Right. Yeah, this would have eaten shit 100%. And up until you had seen it first, told me it was terrible. I held my doubts, because I know how much you love the original. I watched this last night, it was my Vegas come down, and it is so terrible. It
Mhm.
is one of the most boring action movies, and it's got all the CGI nonsense that would have looked so bad on a big screen. You
Mhm.
know, I couldn't notice how bad it was, quite how bad it was on my regular TV screen, but on a movie theater screen, that would have looked awful. And we don't think Conor McGregor is going to be a movie star coming out of this.
No, his performance, and I know some people are saying they liked it
Right.
because it was unhinged,
It's unhinged. He starts off naked, he ends naked. Yeah.
but it's not fun. That's not fun.
It's not
He
fun.
is
Yeah.
he comes off as I'm not gonna listen. I don't want to say what I was gonna
W-
say
Would
because
you say would
he's an
you say
imposing
he's
gentleman.
right, right, and he's possibly a listener. Now that he's in the movie business, I'm sure he is listening to the BO boys. So
Yeah,
yeah, so he was great in this film. Conor McGregor was great in this.
yeah, greatest
Love to have him
performance
on.
ever put on film.
Yes, yes. Hi Connor, great job. We love you. Come on the show remotely.
Hmm.
Uh so yeah, Roadhouse would have bombed, but Conor McGregor, I think, really showed himself to be a true actor with this performance.
And I think everybody knows where we're gonna go with this and why this casting was terrible. And I mean, when you have someone like Logan Paul right there,
Yeah, right
sitting
there.
right there
Yep.
to play the lead in Roadhouse, and you take Jake Gyllenhaal,
Right.
I'll say it here.
Right.
Logan Paul, you launch him as an action star in Roadhouse.
Yep.
You show his cocky side, his sensitive side, his
Right.
fighting abilities, which he genuinely has,
Yes.
as opposed to Jake Gyllenhaal, who probably did a few boxing lessons
right.
and then said, I'm good.
Right. Right.
Special effects
Right.
will take care of the rest.
Right.
You put that guy with his muscle, his social media muscle, his
Mhm.
WWE superstardom,
Right.
his sports drink, right?
Yes. His prime. Yeah, he's in his prime. Mhm.
You talk about Dune buckets, right? You make a special Roadhouse Prime flavor, and it's
Oh,
only available
wow.
at a Roadhouse screening, this thing would
Wow.
make Bafa Bobo.
Yeah,
How
100%.
high would this would be the number one movie in America this week
Yeah.
because you're getting the Roadhouse Special Prime. It
Yep.
tastes like it tastes like a what is
It
that?
tastes like Terry Funk's boot from the first movie.
Well, I was gonna say what's the Shirley? It tastes like a Shirley Temple or something. Like a
Okay. Oh, so you're
non-alcoholic
got it.
because
Okay.
because it's a Roadhouse, so there's booze, but you want the kids to come. You want the
You want the kids to
prime
come. But the kids
prime
want the
kids
boot.
to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my take on this is that
Right.
miscast up and down the board.
Up
You
and down the
got
board.
Logan Paul just sitting there. Somebody's gonna take this idea and run with it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and this was, remember, originally this remake was supposed to be Ronda Rousey as the Jake Gyllenhaal part as Dalton.
As Dalton's
And
daughter, I think.
yes, and then her stardom waned quickly. She reached her height, beating up Turtle in the Entourage movie, and then never burned brighter after that.
But I'll tell you what, not now, of course. But if that Ronda Rousey version had come out, it would have done better in the theaters than this movie would have if you put it in theaters.
Oh, yes, her at her peak is a bigger star than Jake Gyllenhaal has ever been, for sure. But yeah, that's our box office what if for this week. What if Roadhouse had opened in theaters, and we both agree it would have cried macho.
Cried macho.
So
if it was lucky.
If it was lucky, yes. So Clayton, I think that's it for this episode. We're gonna get over to the Kirk exclusive on the Kirk Minahan YouTube network to talk about my Vegas trip. Again, I met a lady in Vegas, so we'll talk about that. But I think we've done it for this week on the main feed episode. So email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. We've got a lot of great emails. I think we'll get to that on our weekend preview episode coming up later this week. Email us there, boboyspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at the BOBoysPod on Twitter, X, and TikTok. Wannabe senior intern Christopher is killing it with the clips over there. Of course, Wannabe junior intern Jack has brought the Substack back. He's writing up a storm over there. Great job, Jack. I don't supervise, Christopher does. So great job, Christopher, on supervising Jack to write the Substack articles. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Watch us on our YouTube channel. All of these episodes also air as videos on the BO Boys YouTube channel. Of course, our weekly Kirk exclusive episodes. Episode 3 coming up this week on the Kirk Minahan YouTube channel. Live shows. We got the LA live show date set for Tuesday, October 8th. Boston and New York dates to come. And yeah, I mean, anything else on your end, Clayton? I mean, I think we've done it.
Oh, there's nothing left to say.
No, nothing.
Except for until next time. Well.